You know, men love quoting Ephesians 5:22. Oh, yes, they do. Wives, submit to your husband. They'll post it on social media, frame it on the wall, use it to win arguments at the dinner table. They know the verse by heart, but ask them about verse 25, the one that comes 3 lines later. Suddenly, they're checking their phone. Suddenly, they remember they had somewhere else to be. Suddenly, the conversation needs to change because verse 25 doesn't give men a leadership manual. It gives them an assignment so extreme, so uncomfortable, so impossible that most preachers just skip it. They'll literally spend 3 weeks preaching about wives submitting and maybe 3 seconds on what husbands are supposed to do. And even then they water it down. Be nice to your wife and move on. But that's not what Paul said. What Paul actually said should terrify every man who's ever demanded submission without demonstrating sacrifice. Because when we dig into the Greek, when you see what these words actually mean, when you understand what Paul is really asking husbands to do, it changes everything. Paul literally uses the same word to describe what husbands should do that's used when Judas betrayed Jesus. The same word used when Christ was handed over to be crucified. The same word used when someone is delivered to execution. And if men actually did what Paul tells them to do, if they actually modeled what he's describing, submission wouldn't be a debate. It wouldn't be a struggle. It wouldn't be something women would resist. It would be the most natural response in the world. A woman doesn't resist submission to a man who's modeling Christ. She resists submission to a man who's modeling control. And for centuries, we've confused the two. So let's talk about what Paul actually tells husbands to do. Not what tradition says, not what your pastor skips over, what the text actually says when you stop avoiding the part that makes men uncomfortable. Stay with me. This is about to get deep. This is the verse that nobody preaches. Every wedding, every marriage conference, every sermon on biblical manhood, they start here. Ephesians 5:22. Wives, submit to your own husband as unto the Lord. Boom, sermon over, altar call. See you next week. But verse 22 doesn't start a new thought. It finishes one. Ephesians 5:21 says, submit to one another in the fear of God. Submitting to one another, not just wives to husband, one another. Watch this. In the original Greek, verse 22 doesn't even have the word submit in it. Okay, let me repeat that because somebody might have missed that. In the original text, in the original manuscript, verse 22 doesn't even have the word submit in it. It's borrowed from verse 21. That's why you have to be mindful of interpretations because you're at the mercy of the interpreter's ideology when they translate the Bible. Anyways, let me keep going. The sentence actually flows, submitting to one another in the fear of God. Wives, to your own husband as to the Lord. So this is how the passage actually flows. Submitting to one another in the fear of God. Wives, to your own husband as to the Lord. Paul is saying you submit to one another. Then he gets specific. Wives, this applies to your own husband, not every man, not your pastor, not your father, your own husband. Watch this. In the Greek, own, the word own in Greek, it means one's own, private, belonging to oneself. This is the husband who knows you in private, the one who is yours, literally yours. Why does Paul specify that? Because he's saying your attention goes here to what's in front of you, to what he's modeling. Ladies, here's what I call a cheat code. God is giving you the playbook to never experience a heartbreak. No man living like the one Paul is about to describe would ever break your heart or abuse you. It is impossible for a man living what Paul describes here to ever mistreat a woman or his wife. Women, too often you get caught up in TikTok and Instagram reels about what a husband is supposed to do and be like. You end up looking for that imagery in your own home and your husband is not that man. And honestly, that man on the podcast probably isn't that man either. He just has good lighting and a media team that helps edit out all his mess. Focus on what you have, not what you wish. You're called to respond to what your husband is modeling, because what many of you are doing right now is trying to bring life to a dead situation through the hope of somebody else's story and not your own reality. And that brings us to the verse that should terrify every man who's ever demanded submission without demonstrating sacrifice. Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. I'm going to read that one more time. Ephesians 5 verse 25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Not sort of like Christ, not in the general direction of Christ, just as. You know what Christ did for the church? He didn't just die for her. He gave himself up for her. Completely, without condition, without expecting anything in return. And Paul is telling husbands, that's your standard. This is where most sermons conveniently run out of time. Suddenly, the pastor remembers he has a lunch reservation and 3 board meetings. Because when you actually look at what gave himself up means in the original Greek, it changes everything. The Greek word that Paul uses here, it doesn't just mean to give. It means to hand over, to deliver up, to surrender, to betray. This is the same word used when Judas betrayed Jesus, the same word used when Jesus was handed over to be crucified, the same word used when someone is delivered to execution. You're literally supposed to become your own Judas. Let that sit for a second. Look, if you're realizing right now that you've been trying to fix something that was never yours to fix, or if you're the type of person who's starting to see how much work you actually have to do, you're in the right place. Because these are the kind of conversations we're having on a regular basis. Real people, real questions, real growth. So subscribe to the newsletter, hit the subscribe button on this channel and turn on your notifications, or you can subscribe to the Rethink Faith podcast on Apple Podcasts, because this work doesn't happen in isolation. And if this video is helping you see things differently, share it. Someone in your circle needs to hear this. You're not just called to love your wife. You're called to abandon yourself for her, to hand over your rights, to surrender your agenda, to betray your own comfort, your own pride, your own need to be right. Now think about what Jesus said in John 10:18. No one takes my life from me. I lay it down on my own accord. Jesus chose it. He volunteered it. He gave himself up willingly. That's what Paul is telling husbands to do. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Let's go back to Genesis 16, right after the fall. Genesis 3:16, talking about the woman, your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. The word desire in the Hebrew means control, to dominate, to overpower. The consequence of sin created a power struggle. She needs control. He dominates over that need. So when the Bible says, as Christ loved the church and gave himself up, the husband is betraying that need to rule, which is in his flesh. He's abandoning the need to dominate. He's sabotaging the need to control. Now, why does he have to do all these things? Because the nature to be what is considered a man, the need to be tough, aggressive, dominant, always in control, never vulnerable, is so natural that we think this is what men are supposed to be like. This is just who they are. The guy who doesn't show emotions, the guy who never backs down, the guy who has to have the final say, the guy who equates leadership with control and strength with force. To betray yourself, to sabotage the need to control. It looks like choosing her comfort over your pride. It looks like listening to understand instead of listening to correct. It looks like saying I was wrong when everything in you wants to defend yourself. It looks like abandoning what you think is right for her to do and instead pursuing what she actually needs, the comfort she needs, the understanding she needs, the safety she needs. And for a man conditioned to always be right, always be strong, always be in control, that's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Christ gave up his will, his comfort, his reputation, his safety so the church could live. That's what Paul is telling husbands to do. Not I'll love you if you submit. Not I'll serve you when you earn it. Not I'll sacrifice for you when it's convenient. No, you love her the way Christ loved the church, by giving yourself up completely, without condition, without expecting anything in return. Who leads, loves first. Here's where it gets even deeper. Notice what God never tells a woman to do all throughout Scripture. Love a man. Nowhere in Scripture will you find that. But Ephesians 5 says that's what a man is supposed to do. Why? Because the design is clear. God establishes truth. Men model it. Women maintain it. Now, I'm pretty sure that there's some Bible scholars who, after me saying this, will feel the need to try to correct this because that's what they've learned to do. They learn to correct people. So let me help you. Titus chapter 2 tells older women to teach younger women how to love their husbands. Let me give you two truths. Number one, God didn't say that. Titus told older women to teach younger women. Number two, the word for love in Titus is not the same word for love in Ephesians. The Greek word for love in Titus chapter 2 is a conditional love, an affectionate love. But in Ephesians 5:25, when Paul tells husbands to love their wives, he uses an unconditional sacrificial love. God commands the man to love the woman without conditions. The love Titus told older women to teach younger women was based off a condition, which is why he used a word that represents conditional love. He loves her unconditionally, and that love conditions her to love him. Oh my God, that's so good. He models unconditional love, and she responds with affectionate love. The one who leads in love gives up their life first. Women, too often you are attempting to love first. You are trying to model what he should be modeling, and that causes the one who was created to receive love to sacrifice their life in ways God never intended. You actually have those moments that cause you to sacrifice your life. It's called pregnancy and motherhood. And let's be honest, that alone should earn you a Lifetime Achievement Award and a vacation home. But in the relationship, he leads in love. He gives first. He models first. This isn't about power. It's about responsibility. And most men want the authority without the sacrifice. So let's talk about what leadership actually looks like. Think about what Christ did for the church. He ransomed himself for someone who had been taken captive. Men, that's what you're called to do. She is your sanctuary. She is your body. And whether through sin, through someone else's conduct, through trauma, through the weight of this world, she may have been taken captive. You don't fix that by demanding submission. You fix it by modeling Christ, by creating an environment so safe, so warm, so full of sacrificial love that she doesn't have to protect herself anymore. Think about how Jesus led the disciples. Did he walk away saying, "Submit to me, follow my orders, do what I say"? No, he washed their feet. He served them. He laid down his life for them. And because he modeled that kind of love, they followed him, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but because they saw something worth following. John chapter 13, 14 through 15. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Jesus didn't demand submission. He modeled servanthood. And in doing so, he created an environment where submission wasn't forced. It was a natural response. If you want your wife to submit, model sacrificial love. Don't demand compliance. Demonstrate what it looks like to lay down your life for her. Because what we've called leadership for centuries looks nothing like what Jesus modeled. We've confused authority with dictatorship. We've confused headship with dominance. We've confused submission with silence. And that's not what Paul is describing here. Paul keeps going, and this is where it gets personal. Ephesians 5 verses 28 through 29. So husbands ought to love their wives as their own body. He who loves his wife loves himself, for no one ever hates his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. Paul uses two words here that most men skip right over: nourishes and cherishes. Nourishes in the Greek, it means to rear up to maturity, to bring to full growth. You're not just keeping her alive, you're helping her become everything God created her to be. Cherishes in the Greek, it means to warm, to foster with tender care, to comfort, like the way you put a blanket over someone you love while they're sleeping. You don't just provide for your wife, you nurture her. You create an environment where she can grow, where she feels safe, where she's warmed by your presence, not threatened by it. And here's the kicker. He who loves his wife loves himself. Why? Because you're one flesh. When you tear her down, you're tearing yourself down. When you neglect her, you're neglecting yourself. When you poison the relationship, you're drinking the poison. So let me ask you something. Does he love himself? Does he speak life to himself? How does he take care of his health? How does he handle responsibilities? That alone will tell you what you will receive, ladies. You can't love him out of that. So make sure he loves himself, because if he doesn't know how to nourish or cherish himself, he won't know how to nourish and cherish you. And that's not something you can fix. That's something he has to own. Some women come into marriage carrying wounds, protecting parts of themselves that have been hurt. This is how you help them heal, because her actions aren't who she is. They're who she's protecting. And fellas, if you think you can fix her by pointing out everything she's doing wrong, congratulations. You just became part of the problem. You're not a therapist. You're her husband. Act like it. And ladies, if he doesn't love you the way Jesus loved the church, it's not only cheating you out of what you were made to receive, but it's also cheating you out of what makes you your best. Yeah, I know you're already good at what you do. You've made a lot of money. You've had a lot of promotions. But I also know so many of you who've had to use the wrong type of motivation to do it. The real question isn't why won't she submit? The real question is, what am I giving her to submit to? Are you modeling Christ, or are you modeling control? Are you laying down your life, or are you demanding she lay down hers? Are you nourishing and cherishing her, or are you poisoning the relationship with harshness and bitterness? Are you pursuing knowledge of who she is, or are you demanding she conform to who you think she should be? Because submission was never meant to be blind obedience to a man. It was meant to be a response to what's being modeled in front of her. And Paul's final words in Ephesians 5, let the woman see that she respects her husband, not force her to respect you, not demand respect. Let her see. Let her see your love. Let her see your sacrifice. Let her see Christ in you. Because when she sees that, respect isn't something you have to demand. It's something she freely gives. And submission isn't something you have to enforce. It's the natural response to godly leadership. So men, here's what you need to model. Number 1, love unconditionally without expecting anything in return. Christ didn't wait for the church to get it together. He loved first. He sacrificed first. That's your standard. Number 2, abandon yourself. Become your own Judas. Abandon what you think is right for her for what she actually needs, the comfort she needs, the understanding she needs, which is hard for a prideful man to do. Hand over your rights. Surrender your agenda. Betray your own comfort, your pride, your need to be right. Number 3, nourish and cherish her. Help her grow into everything God created her to be. Create an environment where she feels safe, warm, and valued. Don't just keep her alive, help her thrive. Number 4, know your wife. Pursue active, intentional knowledge of who she is. Study her, learn her, pay attention to what she needs. You can't lead what you don't know. If you want your wife to submit, model Christ. If you want her to respect, demonstrate love. If you want her to follow, lead like Jesus, because the issue isn't her submission. The issue is your modeling.